UK Cinema History, Season 2, Episode 10, Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, 1960, directed by Karel Reisz and starring Albert Finney. Hello and welcome to UK Cinema History. Today's film will be Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, by Karel Reisz and starring Albert Finney. Hello, hi, how are you today, Mr. Bender?
Hey, I thought I would be like the fourth or fifth person, and I was worried about being late. Okay. Well, anyway, thank you for choosing another seminal film. Thank you for this whole series. It's been very nourishing.
Oh, thank you. Hi, that means a lot to me. Sila actually has to work today, so if he is able to make it, he's not going to be able to talk that much because he's going to have us on basically in the background of work. But we should, however, have Yassi returning today. She actually read the novel and had done some work, but that's going to also depend on her work schedule. I'm not expecting a huge turnout for a 64-year-old kitchen sink drama, but we do still have our whopping 43 people who listen to this on Facebook, so there is still an audience whether we see it or not. So
Okay. I actually don't have a ton to say. I'm going to share some trivia from IMDb. And other than that, I might have reactions to what other folks say. But, if this ends up being a shorter room than usual, then that'll be fine too.
and I do love me a good short room, although and this is something Yassi and I have talked about, because she keeps worrying that I'm going to get discouraged by the small turnouts. And I always say, if I get one person to watch one of these movies who wouldn't have, it's worth an hour and a half, 2 hours of my time once a week. And I mean, that's all I really need. And even if they didn't enjoy the experience, the fact that they exposed themselves to it. That's enough for me.
That's very sweet of you. I really value the discussions that we have. I think that the insights and knowledge that that comes out on the stage is of great value, at least to me. So it doesn't matter how many people are on the stage, as long as the people on the stage are able to discuss a film with the depth that we've been lucky enough to have the last few weeks. So it's very worthwhile to me to see the films, to do my end of the research, and then to chat with you and whoever else is coming to the stage. So should we get started?
Yeah. How about you do your prepared notes while I try and kind of ping some of the people who said that they might be here. And then if we do have more people turn out, we can just kind of repeat any points that you want to make
Sure.
when we do.
That's fine, because I'm going to start with just trivia. So it's not a big deal if anyone misses it. But I do want you to listen, because I think some of it will be of interest to you. So first of all, the co-producer of this movie, Harry Saltzman, do you know who his original choice for playing the lead role that Albert Finney ended up playing? Do you know who his original choice was?
I'm gonna take a wild guess because he was working with Paul Newman at that point. Was it Paul Newman?
No, it was Peter O'Toole.
Wow. That would have been a different movie.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was really interesting. Um, and of course, Albert Finney's first film role, um, Laurence Olivier, years later said Albert Finney. If I'm getting this right, I think Laurence Olivier said that Albert Finney was the greatest living actor. Um, so uh, Finney had his fans. Um, so there's that. Um, and the film went through some dialogue changes before release. Um, the They managed to get through bastards, bloody, and bleeding, but the censors refused sod, Christ, and bugger. um, Even when they tried to change bugger to bogger. Um, hey, Yassi. Um,
Hi.
I'll stop so we can get Yassi into this.
Hey, how's everybody?
Good, thank you for coming, Yazzie.
Of
I,
course.
I, Hi has been more going through trivia. He said he didn't really have as many notes as he normally does today. So I'm going to turn to you as someone who I believe is the only person in the room who's read the book, unless Mark and I have, and I just didn't know about it. But I know I haven't. And kind of compare to me the book to the film a little bit, Alan. And was Karel Reisz able to capture Alan Sillitoe's writing style in your mind, Yassi?
Okay, so you just caught me off guard. Yeah, so what I can say is that what I felt was the the s- the style in the writing in the book was uh the way that the character, the main Arthur, develops in the book is more profound. And for what I can say is that, like, that that sense of anti-hero, that sense of, he's this this his authenticity, and like the way that he is so believable in the book is much more profound than the film. Even though I love the film, I love everything about it. I love the you know how much I love this free cinema movement, this the the style, the way that the camera most of the time is at eye level, that we feel that we are present with the characters at every scene, and we kind of go through this journey with them. But in the book, there is something, there was something. I still haven't finished the book, but you know, especially with the female characters, and the way that the book goes through each of them and present each of them, even the the auntie that is not that, we don't see her much in the film, but in the book she is very well represented. We kind of connect to her. We understand why Arthur goes to her, and we understand that why that trust is there. I love the depiction of the female characters in the book more. And I think I'm gonna stop right now. Otherwise, I can go on and on and on, and we can go back to that. But to that, I can say this but one thing that I have to say right at the get-go is that what brought me to uh, Alan Alan Sillitoe is so funny, that story. And it was through the Smiths and Morrissey, because and also Arctic Monkeys and Oasis and all these rock, like rock music and punk music, British pop music, because they all refer to his characters and from his books, and like Sheila Delaney and all that. So I always wanted to know, who are these characters that, and what, like these long titles from their albums, from their song, like Don't Look Back in Anger, and that, all that. What are these titles? Where are they coming from? Who are these names? And that's how I get to him, through the punk scene, through British punk scene music.
Could I just uh, expand on that? The band, the Arctic Monkeys, their debut album was titled "Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not," and that's a quote from the movie. Just agreeing with that.
Well, and the Beatles' "Help" quotes the line, "I believe you, thousands wouldn't," in the film. And Ray Davies, the Kinks, in the life of mentions Arthur Seaton several times. I mean, yeah, huge pop culture reference. Sila, are you able to speak, or are you with a client at the moment?
I am here. If I do not respond, it's because I am busy. But if I'm here and with our clients, I can respond. Yes, so I'm
I
here.
did want to start with uh, and this is always a thing that with me ever since you and I became friends all those many moons ago. There's in these films, there's always kind of like this. I call it a Sila Blume moment, and it's when Arthur takes his girlfriend, his married girlfriend, to his aunt to see about an abortion, and he's wearing his suit jacket and his teddy boy dress shoes. And I thought, the first thing I thought is, Sila will appreciate that. When I knock up a married woman and take my aunt to go get an abortion, I wear a goddamn suit like a goddamn gentleman.
I did. I did. I was impressed with the fact that the what was the other movie? I get this title sometimes mixed. We watch too many movies and talk about too many movies in 1 week. But there was the other movie with the two type of they were not gangs, but an attitude in the
Yeah,
60s.
Quadrophenia, and yeah, that was the mods,
Correct,
which was
correct,
about
correct,
that
correct.
takes place 3 years after. It takes place in pretty much 1957. So these are what are called the Teddy Boys, and the
So
Teddy Boys were their suits were based on where they get their name is Edwardian era outfits, and that was the fashion then.
so what interests me in connection with that was the the self-evident idea that I dress up. When I go out, even if it is to the bar, I dress up, and I found that very. I really enjoy that, the way they, even the simplest person, just pays attention to dressing well. So that's that to that. I don't know how far you are in the room now. What are we speaking
Just
about? But
just just getting started.
oh, okay.
Well, I guess I'm going to give you my opening thoughts, and I used to have mixed feelings
Well,
about this film.
let me just.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
had a few more trivia thing. We kind of cut me off, so Yassi could get into it. But just to finish, because I don't have a lot. Um, this is a connection between this and Kez is that they both used real life locations based on the author's life. So the house used for filming the Seaford's house was actually Alan Sillitoe's house. It's actually where he grew up. And the factory scenes were filmed in the same factory that he used to work in during the war, when he was making shells and other artillery. Well, at the time, the factory was owned by the Raleigh Bicycle Company, and you will see a sign for Raleigh if you look really carefully. Um, and yeah, that was basically what and the Legion of Decency refused to give a film its seal of approval, so that is one of the reasons it didn't do as well in the U.S. However, in the UK, it was the third highest grossing film of the year. So it was very successful at the time. And that's it. That's everything I had.
And another trivia point before we move on is, of course, Harry Saltzman was able to purchase Ian Fleming's rights to the James Bond books because Ian Fleming saw this film and and reached out to him because he said that this was the guy he was going to trust with James Bond. So there is that. This was actually a bomb when it first came out, and it became a hit when it got re-released into college towns because uh, it had been originally marketed as kind of a working class. If you look at the original movie posters, it was really looked like it was going to be a lurid kind of sex movie with an older married woman interfering with a young man and his true love, and that just didn't work, because as Harry Saltzman put it, the working class stayed home in droves. But when they re-released it into the college town, and the middle class ate this film up, and as Yassi has pointed out, it had a lot of influence. As a matter of fact, of the kitchen sink dramas, I think this is the best known, at least among people from England. But anybody else have any thoughts before I kind of go into my opening thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something in general about that free cinema. That was my forever question, that I always wanted to know why, because there's such great movies and the topics are still very relevant, why we don't see them much, why they are not in many, like, criterions, the remakes or resurrections, or all that, or we don't see them a lot in, I don't know, in Netflix or many other streaming services. That was my forever complaint. But something happened this year during especially during the award seasons, that I found very interesting, and it was all this, just because you mentioned the influence, and I found that the influence of these movies, of this uh British realism, how present they are in cinema, in today's cinema, and in today's filmmakers. And I keep, like, write to you, Eric, on back channels, that for instance, like what Hai just said, that all these um the locations, the real locations, that was the same thing, the very interesting thing about All of Us as Strangers, that the writer, the filmmaker, the writer, the director, he went back to his home, his childhood house, and he saw that the house is still there the way it is. And I'm not going through the story of the film, because that's going to be a big spoiler. That's the whole point of that film. But he goes back to that real location, and that real location kind of that was the spark for him to write his movie and to create this movie. Same for Jonathan Glazer. He went back to Auschwitz, and they remade that place at the location, the whole thing. And I think that's something that this is the influence of this era. And also what I found really fascinating in this film in particular, because this is the war today with the streaming services and this competition between all these streaming services and cinema, and how well it was presented here with TV, and how people were like, television was first brought to houses, and how it was kind of, hypnotizing, and how it affected the way that people interact, and the families, uh and the industry, the cinema industry, and the movies, and all that. I think, yes, it's true, we don't see these movies on streaming services today, or we don't see them with the best qualities that they deserve, but their influence is so present in every modern, in every like contemporary, after millennium films, British films specifically, that we see today.
Thank you, Yazzie. Yeah, that's a very, very good point. I've always had mixed feelings about this one as far as kitchen sink drama goes, because I, and I'm admitting a prejudice, didn't get to see it because it wasn't released on video until I was in my 20s. And it's a weird thing, but when you see a film, does kind of affect how it registers with you. And so when I was watching films like The Entertainer and The Sporting Life, I was in that perfect, most influential age of 15, 16, and by the time I saw this film, I had seen all of Tony Richardson's Au revoir, and I had seen all four of the Lindsay Anderson films, and to me it didn't compare. But of course, it was made 4 years before This Sporting Life, and so that's unfair. And the other thing is, if you're going to compare every film to something that Lindsay Anderson makes, you're not going to like anything, because of course Lindsay Anderson is better than 90% of all the directors out there. And but on this viewing, I was able to kind of put that aside, and I now see what other people have seen in this film that I had allowed myself to miss for all of these years. But there are a couple of things that I hold on to, which is, number one, I was very sympathetic with the parents in this, and I really felt like that the film gave them the short shrift. These are people who survived the bombing of Nottingham, or maybe even served in the war, and all they want to do is settle down, as Arthur says, with their television and their pack of fags, and enjoy life. And he calls that being dead from the neck up. But the father is such a great character. When the policeman comes, and the father he's like, I hate cops. I'm not telling you anything. He's not worried about moral lessons or whatever. The lesson that he's trying to teach his kid is, don't be a snitch. I love him, and he's great. The other thing, that compared to the other kitchen sink dramas, this always felt like a cheat of an ending to me. At the end of The Entertainer, which I like a lot more than most people, I realize, Archie Reisz is offered a chance to start anew, become part of the middle class, and absolutely, but all he has to do is give up who he is as a person, and all of his hopes and dreams, or else he's going to have to go to jail. And he says, I'll go to jail, that's fine, because it's that important to him. At the end of this film, we have the we have Arthur is going to get married, buy a house with indoor plumbing, etc., etc. And he is, after spending the entire film, 85 minutes, complaining about how he's trapped in by these middle class, dead from the neck up people, doing the exact same thing. And while that is a good lesson, and it, and a good ending for the film, it doesn't strike me as powerful because it seems tacked on. It doesn't feel like it's a part of what goes before it. And the scene before it, I think, would be a great ending because it's a great scene, which, if it had just ended right there, then I would be talking about this the same way I talk about The Entertainer, and the same way I talk about this Sporting Life. And it's Brian Pringle as Jack, who is given this very broad Birmingham accent, almost like he feels like an alien, who is the husband of Rachel Roberts' Brenda, whom Arthur has impregnated, and has had Arthur beaten up by his brother and another soldier. And all he has to say to him is, "You've caused a lot of trouble for us." In that, I'm sorry, it was in Birmingham. "You've caused a lot of trouble for us," and then gives him some friendly advice, and then says, "Well, I'll be seeing you around," and that's it. And this was a man who's going to be raising Arthur's child for him because he's chosen to do so. That would have been a perfect ending for this film. But to me anyway, and would have stayed within what I felt was the credo of the free cinema, British kitchen sink drama movement. But that's not the film we got, and that wasn't the moral that they were trying to portray. Which they were trying to portray that no matter how much you rebel against the system will eventually overtake you. And it's, I think, unfair of me to say, but that's not the moral I want from this film. I want to feel like his like that Arthur's not just a shit, and his rebellion, it does mean something, and it's going, but it doesn't. And so again, I think it's unfair of me. But I used to call this the beginner's guide to British kitchen sink drama because I thought it was oversimplified and made, and it's got a very brisk running time, and I thought it was just made to be much more entertaining than enlightening. But I realized on this viewing at the ripe age of 54 that was my viewing it through a young, rebellious, angry man's lens. And as an older man, I realize this does actually have a deep message, and that I had been missing it all of these years. So, those are my opening thoughts. I think I've been unfair to this film over the years, and I now realize why it's held in such high esteem.
I think the ending for me was a little more layered than that, because he throws a stone at one of the houses. Potentially, he could have broken a window. He could have broken someone's head. So he just throws this stone randomly at the houses, and then I think he says, or she says, I think she says, you shouldn't be doing that. And he says, I promise you, I will be doing that. I will continue to do that. So he's saying that he's going to, even if he moves into these houses and he has the trappings of a middle class, he's not going to stop being angry and rebellious and making trouble. So I think it's more of a mixed message at the ending, as what you're indicating. Of course, This is from someone who also maintains Kes, the ending of Kes can be seen as either pessimistic or optimistic, depending on how you want to look at it. Oh, and
I'd like to welcome.
Hillary, yeah, I
Oh,
was
go
gonna,
ahead.
I wanted to, we both
Yeah,
had the
I
same
want
thing.
to welcome Hillary to the stage. Hillary, your opening thoughts on Saturday night and Sunday morning, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Always a great pleasure and honor to have you on stage.
You might not think that after my opening comments. I thought that it was middle of the road. I thought that it was done and overdone. I thought that there was way too much in it, as far as like it just seemed to be all over the place. Uh, and I felt like I'm so sick of this like typical Playboy. Um, just oh, I know it's of the era at that time. I know that, but there's just a certain archetype that I just want to choke slam the hell out of, and this is it. Hate this trope. But it was very well played. If it wasn't, I wouldn't have such strong feelings about it.
I don't have strong feelings. I actually don't have strong feelings about the film, so I'm open to all perspectives, and we very much welcome yours.
And Arthur's a shit. From beginning to end, he is just a shit. I mean, his life is about drinking and fucking. It's about partying on Saturday night and regretting it Sunday morning. And and it's interesting because, of course, without Albert Finney's great central performance, this would be an impossible film to watch. And I'm trying to picture Peter O'Toole in this. But as great as Albert Finney's performance is, I have trouble understanding him a lot in this film. And it's not the accents. He mumbles some of his better lines in this film. And I know it's deliberate. It is a kind of an attempt to do, the American Brando or James Dean or that type of, don't let the bastards get you, and what have you. And which, because of course you can understand every other character in the film perfectly clearly. So it has nothing to do with the Nottingham accent. It's the mumbling. And so when I look back at maybe why, when I first saw this film, I didn't jump up and say, this is a masterpiece. The way I did this sporting, like the way I did films like The Entertainer, Loneliness of a Long Distance Runner, and which we haven't gotten to yet. Is because maybe I wasn't able to latch on to Arthur because of him being just such a drinking and fucking machine and mumbling, because of course I can't stand mumbling.
Just
Eric,
a quick comment for anyone who is confused about the Peter O'Toole reference. We started the room by my mentioning Harry Saltzman, who was co-producer on the film. His original choice for the main character was not Albert Finney, it was Peter O'Toole, but he couldn't get Peter O'Toole, so Albert Finney played the role. So that's where Eric's comment came from.
Eric, I have to say, like, I'm sorry that he's not Richard Burton in Don't Look Back in Anger, with like his overperformance of Shakespearean performance in that the British realism.
We would not be discussing this film if it were, which is why we don't do Look Back at Anger. That's why we chose not to do Look Back at Anger, because that's all we would be talking about.
Just that's what. So, but I'm going to justify all the things that you're saying. Everyone's complaints about the film, as usual, because I believe that if the movie looks like you can't find discipline in the film, it's because the character, our main character, is what he lacks is discipline. So I think this fits the style of the film fits really really well with our main character. And of course, this if you still find the characters like not compelling and all that, that's exactly the whole point of the film. And I think that's what makes him authentic and real, and you can relate to him because of all this flaws that we see and we find in him. That's why.
Interesting.
And the
See, I
other
feel
thing,
like
if
the punishment and all that he received didn't do anything to, like, he doesn't, nothing happened. I mean, he gets the absolute crap beat out of him, and he's just like, meh, whatever. It's, I mean, in the hospital, he said they're still hitting on homegirl. Like, you know, like, it doesn't matter to him. None of the discipline he receives, none of the guiding forces externally matter. He's just flippant. He's gonna do whatever the fuck he wants to do anyway, regardless.
look, I totally
Yeah, because
understand
he's a
that.
shit.
Why? No, because all these conflicts within him, all these contradictions within him is what make it. I totally understand that why it makes it hard to get behind the character. But look, I must say that this is not a movie that you can just go with fresh eye and judge and like broad judgment. I think look at the movie. The movie is not trying to judge these characters, none of these characters. And I think this is a lesson. That's how the filmmakers kind of
That's a
train the
really valid point.
audience to the audience to do not draw judgment and do not look at this movie with your judgmental eye. And the other thing is that you need to have some kind of understanding of the whole uh, free cinema movement and with like where these characters come from. You know, this is
Can,
where
can we do the
really,
manifesto real quick before you move on? Can we?
of course, you can do
I,
manifesto anytime
I'm
you
doing this from
want.
memory, but no film can be too personal. The image speaks, sound amplifies and comments. Size is, I believe the word was irrelevant. Perfection is not our goal, and an attitude means a style, and a style means an attitude. And I want to take up something that you said, Yassi. First of all, you know I did completely disagree on every film can be looked at with a critical eye. But but we're not going to keep having that argument. We've been having it since August. But to Hillary's point about this film feeling all over the place, this is a very well organized film, and the organization is to make it feel unorganized. That is to say, but if you look at Freddie Francis's photography, this is yet another Freddie Francis photograph film. Next week when we do Dr. Zhivago, another Freddie Francis's film. Next month we're doing The Elephant Man, another Freddie Francis. I mean, Freddie Francis comes up again and again and again. And of course, we talked about him for his work on The Innocents is excellent in this film. The editing is just excellent in this film, and the way it moves, it feels aimless, but it is the most organized aimlessness that you've ever experienced, because you are moving from place. So you don't need, like you had in The Sporting Life, the flashback structure in order to get Arthur's backstory. The moving from scene to scene, we feel Arthur's backstory from it. You know, we realize that every pub he goes to, he's known, which is we have a phrase for that. It's called alcoholism. If every pub you walk into in town, the bartender knows you by name, that's what that's called. And
You just got booed by every single person sitting at the bar. Cheers.
Norm, but do you get what I'm
I
saying?
freaking love you.
where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. But when it's every bar in town, that's called alcoholism. You know, and we're experiencing this with Arthur, which I assume, Yassi, that that the Sillitoe novel is a first-person narration from Arthur. Am I wrong about
Yes,
that,
yes,
or?
no, all along, just like the movie. We see everything through his eyes. Yes.
But we actually only hear him narrate during two scenes, and one of them is when he's making the bicycle parts and wants to get a fag, and the other is right after he gets beaten up when he looks into the mirror. The
He does
rest of
have
the
some
narration.
lengthy diatribes in here. He does go on a little bit of a soliloquy on several different points where the monologues. If as an actor, I would be very nervous about playing this role just because the you know the monologues are quite intense.
No, because there is an answer to that. But yes, it's not follow this Hollywood type of structure narrative because it is not. It's more of a observational quality to the movie. The structure is not defined by the plot. It's not messy. It's the yeah, that's why.
Well, the image speaks and the sound amplifies and comments. And so when Arthur is turning to somebody and talking about how trapped he is and how everyone's an idiot except for him, we're not being lectured by the character about what is right and wrong. Of course, we are supposed to interpret that ironically, which of course which is what they did wrong, I thought, with Look Back in Anger, because of course Jimmy is given gravitas and authority in that, and which is supposed to be like this, just the crazy poppings off of a young guy. In this case, a young drunk guy but it's his disrespect for authority that has created him, and it's the authority's inability to command his respect that has created sort of the generation of Arthurs. I was talking to Yassi.
Wait, on that note, real quick, did Author come from this movie? Was Author influenced the movie Author? Was it influenced by this movie?
No, no,
Okay,
no.
you just said that and it clicked in my head. I'm like, wait a minute.
No. But Arthur as a character is somebody who I think we've all known, even in the United States. Everybody's
Or
had
we've
an
all
Arthur in
been
their
at
life.
one time.
Well, hopefully not for me, but there are parts of my life where if I run into somebody that I knew, then I just immediately apologize, and so far nobody said for what. So, but back to what Yazzi's point was about the structuralism. This is a film very much in that 60s jive, because of course they were very influenced by the French New Wave. They were very influenced by what was coming out of Italy at the time, especially Michelangelo Antonioni's L'Avventura, which again, they feel like very unstructured works, but then when you look back at them, and of course on a second or third viewing, you see how every single morsel of this film is in place and has a reason for being there. And also, it's very brisk. It runs about 85 minutes, which we all know how I feel about about films under 90 minutes. I think all films should be under 90 minutes. Bergman's best films were all under 90 minutes. Buñuel's best films were all under 90 minutes. I have no idea what you need 3 fucking hours for, unless you're doing War and Peace, or like next week, Boris Pasternak's Dr. Zhivago. I don't understand
Because
making
they
people
weren't
sit in a
making
theater for that
movies
long.
for streaming services. They were making movies to be seen in cinema, and they were thinking about everything and the poor, miserable viewers that had to sit on those chairs
Ding,
for
ding,
more
ding.
than 2 hours.
I want to take a moment to welcome Denzel to the stage. Denzel, do you have some thoughts? He might be away from his phone, so we'll get back to.
I have
So
a question about the
now,
character really quick before we move on from this. Do you feel that
of
this is a
course,
fully
Hillary.
developed character?
No, I feel like he's not a fully developed human, though.
Oh
But
well, that's true.
do I feel like he is a real person? Yes. This is somebody I've known an Arthur Seaton in my life or two, and yeah, uh, um, but no, yeah, he's not a fully developed character, but he is a fully developed. But here's what he isn't. And what I think British cinema at this time was doing better than American cinema, and American cinema really didn't catch up with this until the 1970s. He isn't a symbol. He doesn't symbolize anything.
So yeah, I
Um,
can say there's no agenda toward him. He's not
mhm.
yeah, he's not the archetype of something yes.
And I think that's something that American audiences would have probably gone along with, but American filmmakers never really trusted their audience to really genuinely invest themselves in a character that didn't have a main character that didn't have some greater meaning. When we were talking about The Entertainer, one of the things that kept coming up is the symbolism for the dying of England, time and time again. There isn't a greater symbolism in this, or in Kess, or in this sporting life. The story isn't about a universal theme. The story is universal because it's real. And so anyway, but a question now that I have two women on the
Well,
panel.
before you ask your question, just wanted to follow up.
Wait,
Why are we
I
giving
wanted
a
to say
second one?
something like related to that we go back to the 70s and to American cinema. Something that is very well pointed in this film is that they go and watch Pillow Talk, the Michael Gordon movie, and that actually I really like, with Rock Hudson and Doris Day. And when they come out of the movie, Doreen says that, oh, I exactly knew how the movie was going to end. And I think that was a kind of very uh, a kind of derogatory hint towards American cinema at that point.
Go ahead, Hi.
Okay. I wanted to say about first person that, yeah, of course it starts with the first person narration, but the perspective is always from his perspective. Um, and this is something that it has in common with a film we talked about a few days ago, Yojimbo. Um, it's always from a main character, and Yojimbo makes a joke of it. So like, we'll see a scene, and we don't see Sanjuro, and so, but then they'll pan up to like a water tower or something, and he's been watching off screen, and so that's or he's in a coffin, and we don't get to see the war that's happening because his angle isn't right. So he tells the people to carry him over so he can see what's happening, and then when the coffin is angled properly and he can see the fight, we can also see the fight. So that the perspective is always his perspective. Hillary, you're not Mike, but we can't hear.
You're not. Yeah, we're not hearing you, hon. Well, hopefully she can get fixed what's going on. Um, Here's a question for the ladies. I always feel like they kind of got short shrifted. The women got short shrift in this film, quite honestly. I don't. When Hillary talks about fully developed characters, I don't feel like that this gives a full, and it just happens to be that Rachel Roberts from The Sporting Life is playing Brenda, and Shirley Enfield is from The Entertainer is playing Doreen. But I didn't actually. I felt like maybe that not only was this a very male dominated film, but when you look at something like Taste of Honey by Charlotte Delaney, or you look at the John Osborne works, this has always it is always kind of stuck in my craw that this is a film where the women seem to be either swooning at Arthur's feet or getting slapped around by their husband, But I wonder, as women, if you felt the same thing I did.
I'm still waiting to see if Hillary can fix her microphone.
Hillary, maybe if you left the room and came back?
She might be experiencing bad internet, which case she wouldn't be able to do that either.
She might be protesting.
There it is. That is true. But I will tell you, a silent protest doesn't work on Clubhouse. Well, okay, Yazzie, as the woman with the working microphone, how did you feel about the female portrayals in this
Fair enough.
film compared
Actually,
to The Sporting Life and Charlotte Delaney?
I kind of like the portrayal of female characters in the film. I think this, if like we want to put them next to Arthur, which is like he is a like, okay, first the problem here is that you guys in the room, you weren't agree with my points with about Arthur, but I think that like if he is a character who is trying to, what I was trying to say was that we have to see where he comes from. We know that if we want to see, these type of angry men, these men who feel trapped, these men who think that they know that they want something more, but they don't know how to achieve it. Or some of them, they still haven't found this sense of what we want. Like, just because you mentioned Antonioni, I found it very similar to Blow Up, from the sense that even if these men find their place in society like a famous photographer, they still look for their entertainment in the wrong place. They try to like blow up a, an image, and they look in the wrong place for their entertainment. And even if they try to look good, if they try to, you said it at the beginning to Sila, the like Arthur, he tries to look his best, to dress up and look like perfect, but how hard he tries, he still knows that he is trapped, and there is something standing in front of him. And I think that goes in the same way about the female characters, but the problem with, when I said that I think the movie is more of the exploration of the world. And I told you, Eric, before in the back channel, I said I think historically, that at that point in England that they're talking about, like this movie is taking place, it's very important because we can look at this film, and this sense of, just like Boy that we talked about yesterday, this sense of documentary like that this movie has, it's so important also. And it also speaks to the female character. Oh, like we see these men, they can at least go out, they can at least go seek uh, a job or something. But for women, they had no choice. They had like they had to stay home, they had to be housewives, they had to be mothers. But when we see characters like Doreen, that and we compare her to her mother, I think that was a very well depiction of two different generations, and especially since there were this emphasis of their sex scene with Arthur, and I think it was very well depicted, that shows that these generation of women, they want something more, and they not even they want it, they go for it, they risk more than what they're given. And I found that really interesting. And also, that very, very important, but that was very central to the book, that sadly we couldn't see more in the film because of all those censorship problems, which was the abortion. And I think when we like look at the movies like Vera Drake, that kind of happened at the same time at this movie, I think that speaks a lot, especially, and I said that these movies, these themes are still very relevant today, is that, especially for women, we have to look and see that when, like, for a character like Arthur that is keep trying to fight the system, you know, for whatever reason, I think we should also question a few things, that why something like Roe versus Wade being unturned, it like shouldn't we as women kind of question that, isn't this the whole goal for the conservative politics that try to bring women back to that era, and look at what and decide for women to like when to lose your virginity, when to have babies or when not to have babies, or to whom you get to marry, or when to divorce and all that. And I think these were so all these kind of beneath the surface of this film, because even if you guys think that the movie is not kind of, it's not very character driven, but I think it's it goes around the main character's relationship with
Well,
all
yeah,
these
see, I don't think anybody
secondary
thinks the film
characters.
isn't. I think the film is very character driven. I think I don't think anybody thinks the film isn't character driven. This is a
Oh,
very
okay, good,
character driven
good.
film.
So, because his relationship with the women in the film is very interesting, I think one of the things that he is trying to get out is he doesn't want his relationship with women just like his father. He doesn't want his women like his mom, just like he doesn't want his life to be like his dad. And I found that really fascinating in the film.
First of all, Hillary, have you been able to correct your issues? Okay, go ahead, Sila.
Well, I just wanted to mention the. Oh, and now somebody comes in. Jeez, shucks. I've been waiting and waiting. Okay, I'm going to go for it. Um, what I find very special is the simplicity, which has a lot to do, in my view, with that society in those days. And I think the simplicity is shown on two sides. One, him as a character, and his society, or society in general. We see these shots of the city, very industrial, very poor, very English in some ways, and then the simplicity of his character that is not really empty, but nevertheless simple. And I think he's not really trying, but he's kind of aware of the fact that there's more out there, but he's not really going for it. But he knows there's something out there when he says to his father something about the eye and watching TV too much is going to affect him in a bad way. So there's something about him that is not limited to his surroundings, but he doesn't know how to get out, and he's not really trying to get out. In terms of the portrayal of the women, I think the center is him. And for that reason, you don't really need to do too much with the women. However, the women show very clearly different ways of holding him or being against him and different. For example, the I think is Brenda. I find a very interesting dynamic in the way that she is not sure. First of all, she is responsible for the whole thing. She's the one married, so she allowed this relationship to start in the first place. But then you see her back and forth with having a kid or not having a kid. Are you going to help me? Are you not going to help me? You're being typical this and that. There's a very, it's not just one-sided. I think she is showing quite a bit of her dilemma liking him and so forth. I like very much, for many reasons, I like Doreen. And I think the situation with Brenda at some point gives him the freedom to say, okay, I'm going to go with this possibility. And he was until then confused. He wanted to retain both. And he was at the same time trying to keep it private so that one does not know from the other, which tells me he was interested in both. But when that happens with the situation in the circus, he decides, okay, I'm sticking with her. And the final scene, if I remember correctly, all along, when they met for the first time, she has also she has always shown a very cool reaction, but in the end, she always says yes, but always very retained, not very open. She's never shows excitement. She usually says, "Okay, when you want to, if that's what you want." Okay, so
Is
she's
that
never.
more of a British thing though, or her character thing, or is that more of a British at that time thing? You think?
Welcome back, Hillary.
Sorry, I had to call.
So, but then at the end, I think it's very interesting to see how he is still in his crazy world. By the way, they keep talking about how crazy he is, but I don't see him doing anything really crazy in the movie. So I think there's an image there that is a little bit
I
overblown.
think shooting his neighbor in the butt with an air gun was a little nuts.
Well, that lady, yeah, okay. But
Well, she
there's
had
also
it.
a
She had it
dynamic.
coming.
There's also a dynamic that we don't see coming. There must have been something that we don't see in the movie that was building up to that, and the lady was not the
Oh,
nicest.
well, see, the way I read it was that she was involved in that incident where the guy broke the window and they made the citizens arrest and waited for the police to come, and that he was trying to avenge that.
Give me a
I agree
second.
with that.
Hillary, glad to have you back. How did you feel about the portrayal of especially the two main female characters, Shirley Ann Field as Doreen and Rachel Roberts as Brenda? I know you weren't here for the sporting life, but you were here for the entertainer, so at least you saw Sally Ann Field there. Where I'm gonna
That
mute
motorcycle
now.
says, "We are not hearing you right now, sir. I have a small penis and I'm going to be heard." Sorry, go ahead. Every time I hear a car rev like that, that's all I can think of. Is, God, you've got a small dick.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those big dodges. I'm out on my balcony yet again. Sorry about your penis. Anyway, yeah, the portrayal of women in this, and you weren't here for this sporting life, where Rachel Roberts played I thought, infinitely more complex female character, the widow in that. But you were here for the entertainer, where I had said I thought Shirley Ann Field was kind of the light of that film, that because not only was she incredibly beautiful, but she really I thought created took a character that wasn't that interesting on the page and made her very interesting for me. But what did you feel about? I didn't feel that about either of their performances here or of their characters. But what did you think?
Droll, not dynamic in any way. I felt that they were performative and not They didn't move me along in the story. They didn't pull me in. They didn't show me any range that I could attach to, associate with, that I could relate to, or that I could be angry at. It was very much what women in cinema were at that time. Just an attachment to to the male. The male is the star, and the females were reading their lines a lot of the times. That's why when we look back at our great Hollywood stars and are the people that were just so, gigantic and much on the screen, that's why, because they were able to pull us in where other characters in other films do not. And this is one of those where I do not remember any outstanding. Now, so when I saw this movie, I used to be obsessed with the Smiths. Like, Morrissey was my god, and that was like all through like high school and shit. So back
There's a
in
night. There's a light that never goes out.
right,
Was the song.
there's several instances that he's like covered lines from this movie in his songs, a lot. Um, a couple other bands too, but so Morrissey had said that it was his favorite movie of all time, which made it my favorite movie of all time for like a minute. But when people would ask me what it was about, I had a hard time telling them, and I've always felt like if you truly understand something, you'll know your level of understanding it by how easy it is for you to explain to somebody else. This movie was never really easy for me to explain because it wasn't dynamic to me at the time. As an
Yeah,
adult,
it's not very high concept. It's very
right.
it's
As an adult looking back, I've lived through many of these moments that the women went through, moments that the men went through. I've lived through them. I've been cheated on. I've been the one, pursuing somebody I shouldn't have pursued. I've been the one drunk and making bad decisions. I've done all this. So I look back at it and I see a whole new movie now. But from my first viewing of it and my first opinions of it, I did not feel any kind of um, what's the word I'm looking for? I couldn't relate
connection.
to it anyway. And I feel like a movie should have something that anyone could relate to in some way. I feel like a movie should have you, because you'd be able to pull you in. And even if you've never done it, you can live it through those characters. And I did not feel like I was living anything through these characters. Does that make sense? Did I word that right?
That was a
So,
very
but I
good
have
answer.
a question. But I have a question. Don't you think that through his relationship with Brenda and Doreen, especially if we compare these two women together, we can see like Arthur's conflicting desires and attitudes towards
No.
love or
I feel
commitment or
like he would have been any
stability
girl. I
or
feel like any girl that would have come to him at that time, married or not, any girl, he would have put his penis in. It would have been like, touch me. I mean, I honestly do not feel he felt, or especially with the woman he marries in the end. Sorry about spoilers. Sorry. I don't feel like he,
We've all seen the film.
really felt deeply for any of these women.
Well,
don't you think that Brenda, like the character, character of Brenda, being married to, like I can't imagine her being married to Brian Pringle, but so through her she represents kind of excitement and taboo and what and Arthur's inner struggle between like seeking thrills or yearning for security, and he wants this security also that he sees in his father, but he also seeks thrills. So Doreen kind of
but
symbolizes that
is that before or
security.
after he gets beaten up? Yazzie,
So
because
exactly,
the way I
he
read the
gets
film
beaten
was he
up.
doesn't think about that until after he gets beaten up, until after there's some comeuppance, after there's something that is to say, up until the Saturday night, and then it becomes Sunday morning when you have to when you have to deal with the hangover.
And that
Oh,
goes
wait, but
back.
isn't that also when she tells him that she's not going to have the abortion? She's gonna keep the
Yes,
baby.
exactly. So he's actually a father
Isn't that
now.
is it so that goes back to the point that I made at the beginning, that whatever he does, he's still trapped. Isn't that
No, that is a really. I
the
didn't hear that. That
reason?
is a really good point. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that was High's point about the ending. That the ending is nuanced. That he's still going to rebel. I want to talk about something that Hillary mentioned, which of course was Morrissey, who is as responsible for the popularity of British sync dramas among Generation Xers as anyone. He put a shot from A Taste of Honey on the cover of one of his albums. He quoted several of these films. I Dreamt About You Last Night and Fell Out of Bed Twice from Taste of Honey arrives in his song. There's a Don't Let the Bastards Get You Down from this film. I mentioned in There's a Light That Never Goes Out, the Take Me Out Tonight, where they're because I want to see music and I want to see lights from this film. But to me, as someone who actually used to follow the Smiths when they were still together as a band, because I'm that fucking old, Hillary. They were a lot like Arthur in this film, and Morrissey was a lot like Arthur in this film, where I thought he was very cool because he would pop off with all of these anti-society things to say, but then he turned out to just be a shit. And now he's a pro-Brexit, anti-Muslim, just your typical anti-wokeism, blah blah blah. Because what I had considered kind of a deep commentary on what was wrong with society just turned out to be the rantings of a shit who complains about everything, and I think that's Arthur's character in a way.
Isn't that the same thing that happened with Terry Gilliam?
No. Terry Gilliam is a different story. He just got extremely old, and the world had just passed him by.
If I may go back shortly, I'm free again. The situation, the reason I said what I said is because, if I remember correctly, the two only confrontations that happened to begin that dynamic is when he hits her or rubs against her gently when he comes from work, and then he hits her with his bike when he's leaving the next morning. So that's all I have in my memory of how that dynamic begins. Then they see each other in the cafe or the bar, whatever that was, and they have an interchange again. And then, of course, the gun shooting. But to get to this dynamic that there's some tension between these two, I don't see anything else. So I don't know what you guys are talking about when you say that. What was the thing that started the whole dynamic?
Well, every film's going to have some moment of attraction. You have to have, whether it's a meet cute or what have you. It's just a convention. We have to have it, and we don't get the first person narration that, say, a novel would, or something that had where Arthur can explain exactly what attracts him to Doreen. But I will say that because it's Sally Ann Fields, I was attracted to her. Quite honestly,
Well, I think she was very attractive.
Well, and not just
Doreen.
physically attractive. I mean, Sally Ann Fields is just
There was something
extremely
about her.
likable. She has a glow about her, and so I think in the casting, in the performance, and in the way she's lit and shot by Freddie Francis, we see that, and we
Yes,
feel
but
it. I didn't
for
question it.
me to go to the extreme to shoot at this lady, that's what I mean. I didn't see something that was so extreme for him to go to the extreme of shooting her the way he did. So that's what I mean, that the dynamic somehow I missed something. I know some things are always before the film. Obviously, they cannot pack everything in there. But for him to go to that extreme to shoot her in her butt, I thought there must have been something that I'm not seeing in the film for him to do that.
I think he was it was his way of standing up for the little guy, because that guy who broke the window, and he tried to stand up, and why can't you leave him alone? And I think that was all it was. I don't think there's more to it than that, but I think you can't look at Arthur as being a deep enough character to have more motivation than that to do something like that. And it is, and I felt anyway that it was in sync with what we know about his character. He's a troublemaker. You know, the apoliticism of it when he gets accused of being a red. He said, "I wouldn't vote communist if I thought it would get rid of guys like him." You know, all of that. You know, the putting the dead rat on the bench of his coworkers. We feel like this is something that Arthur just would do. If that makes any sense to you, Sila.
Yes, I don't. I guess what I get from this character is that he is somewhat challenged, and this challenge, being challenged, has a lot to do with the fact that it's not his fault that he's born in this society. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know he could get out. He has no interest of getting out, apparently, because he's just dressing up and going to drink and getting drunk. But to me, there's something in him, and that's why I said at the beginning, I think it is a very interesting portrayal of a society and this particular individual. And he knows certain things in his gut, but he doesn't seem to get an opportunity to go at it and say, okay, I'm going to. And even at the end, when there's this dialogue, interesting dialogue between him and Doreen, and he is trying to explain to her, look, this is the way I am. And she still says to him in her sweet way, well, uh, but some things are going to change. And there's,
Maybe she just likes bad boys. And
Nope.
what is the one thing about bad boy is that the girls who like bad boys, they like to transform them. They like the challenge of transforming them.
yes, so that tells me that she doesn't really like bad boys. She likes him. There's something about him that she likes, and there's something about her that he likes in the first sighting, and they're obviously attracted to each other. But that's what I mean with the simplicity. In this age, there are certain things that you do and don't do, and she is quite conservative and very protective and very naive in many ways. But she knows she likes him the way she tells her mother. Oh, no, actually, she doesn't tell her mother. She says that when the mother walks away, I like him. So there's something there that she feels attracted to him, not just the fact that he appears to be a, crazy guy. But again, I think we don't see anything that it's really showing us he is a bad person. The thing with the rat, okay, that's a joke. I don't think that the thing with the gun, okay, that was a little bit over the top, but he hasn't done anything where I say, wow, he's really out there. He's really dangerous. He's a nice guy. He's just trying to deal with his society, and he doesn't know what to do with it. He doesn't have the real intelligence to get out.
And I said last week when we were talking about Kess that there is a version of this where you could see Kess becoming Arthur in this film. Yeah,
Yes,
both
yes.
people, you know. But Hillary said she had some trivia that she wanted to share. Scylla, did you have anything else? Because I know that you're kind of pressed for time.
No, I think that's basically it. If I have something else that I forgot, I will bring it up. Thank you.
Yeah, Hillary had some trivia that she wanted to share with us.
Well, what I did is I just put the link in the chat. It's an article he wrote called "Writing and Publishing," where he talks about everything from his influences on down. And one of the interesting things of note, not I don't know if it's in this article or not, but I read earlier, was the bicycle factory. He actually worked there in real life, and that was his job. He worked at the bicycle factory, and it was a very it was one of those like landmark type things in that town that everybody knew. So to have the realism of the movie taking place in real situations, he didn't use studio. He used real locations, real places, and that's what people felt really added to not only the realist grit of it all, but it put the town on the map. So I just thought that was really interesting.
Well, I think Nottingham was on the map before.
Yeah, well, of course, Robin Hood did that. No,
but
no, but I'm
well,
saying what I mean is
it'd
like
be like saying Notting Hill put it on the map.
the individual places, the city itself, yeah, but the like real locations with the real names, didn't change names of anything, and that's something we don't do these days ever. I don't think we can.
I
Yeah,
mentioned
the
that before you guys came in, and
Great
the
minds think alike.
author, yeah, about the factory. The author, when he was working in it, the factory was making shells and other artillery for the war. But by the time of filming, it was the Raleigh Bicycle Company. Also, the house used for the Seafords was the author's actual house.
But
I
this is
didn't know that.
actually,
That's cool.
yeah, but this is actually something that I mentioned before when we were talking in Sporting Life with Eric. I said that because in the Sporting Life also, the factory, they used to make missiles and artillery for war, and then it becomes something else. It's also in Tommy that before, like Eric and I, we talked about it, that uh, they used to make bullets for guns, and then it turned into the pinball machines. And I think this is a very interesting historical fact
They used to make ball bearings in Tommy. They used to make the ball bearings for the tanks, and the ball bearings became pinballs.
But one other thing is that that shooting scene to that's very important. That was actually the I think, if we look back at If, this is also another recurring theme. Like when these men that feel oppressed, that they feel that they are victims of the system, they try to take control and become Robin Hoods and vigilantes. And they kind of they kind of make this justice of their own and get revenge, and order for the sake of order of their own.
Was this one of the films in the male victimhood
Yes, yes,
essay?
yes,
It
it
was
was.
this. It was Look Back in Anger and Kess, wasn't it?
It was If, Look Back in Anger, this one, and Kess. Yes.
Okay. So it was
Isn't
a
that the
quadrilogy.
same
Got
thing
it.
that happens at the end of If? Because what happens at the end is that they also, like, put up their guns and start shooting people, and they try to
No, yeah, and
put,
that's a
like,
very good point. It's the male victimhood running through as a theme through all of these films. That is a very good point. Another point, of course, is this novel was one of the 100 that Anthony Burgess, who wrote A Clockwork Orange, covered in his book, The 100 Best Novels of the 20th Century. And in that essay, he spoke about how his creation of the character of Alex in A Clockwork Orange was very influenced by Arthur Seaton, and that the
I can
aesthetic,
definitely see that. I saw a lot of threads in this that were very similar to that movie, or their book at least.
but because he saw Arthur as a sexual predator. That was his view of Arthur in this. That that was who he felt that Arthur was. That this wasn't just a guy who liked to drink and fuck. That he literally was somebody who preyed on women, and also that he got the aesthetic from the Teddy Boy costume. The Teddy Boy outfits that they wear. For That's where he got the idea for that for his future in A Clockwork Orange, and that's why he had the Droogs all dressing in Edwardian suits, the way that the way that they wear here, and those speckled shoes. So it is interesting. I don't have that interpretation of Arthur. I don't see him that way, but it is interesting that somebody as smart as Burgess did read Arthur in that fashion.
I just
Can I? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Scooty.
Thank you. I just recall the two things that I found also interesting to my ranting about simplicity. The the importance of fishing, I found very very strong part of this character, and he's part of society. But also the way after the escalation with the married woman, with Brenda, he's having a conversation with his friend, with him, he fishes, and he says, her husband is a nice guy. So there's a very nature-oriented aspect of him that I think is the center point, and not his craziness. He says, well, he is a nice guy. So I find that very important, that little sentence at the end.
Well, but it's set up by that scene, of course, and of course the casting of Brian Pringle, who is the ultimate nice guy. You know, he looks like he wandered in from a Carry On film, or maybe an Ealing comedy. You know, and emphasize this. He does. He is. I mean, yeah, he slaps his wife. You know, but he is a nice guy. I mean, he's raising Arthur's child for him, and he pretty much lets him off
Yeah,
with a,
yeah, I
"You
know.
you should behave better. I'll see you around."
Yeah, that
You know,
dynamic is
yeah.
that was a very, very complex
That's
dynamic
a
between those two.
great scene, wonderful scene, and I had initially cited among the things that I didn't like about the film was Brian Pringle's performance in it, because I said he felt like he was in from another film, but that was, I think, before I visited the Midlands, where Birmingham is about 50 miles from Nottingham, and that's not 50 U.S. miles. In England, you might as well be going to a different country when you travel 50 miles. Everything is different. You are going, the difference between Nottingham and Birmingham is that big, and a character like Jack would feel like an alien. And another thing is, of course, you know, I didn't really experience until I had visited Birmingham. They do talk like this. That is how people from Birmingham talk. You know, it and I don't want to use the word genius, because that's a word that's thrown around too much, but that is a very, very smart uh, casting for just that one scene, because without all of that setup, that scene doesn't work. It completely falls apart, because you're asking yourself, why is he letting himself off the hook? Or he just seems like an incredibly weak character, you know. But because you've cast a very likable actor with a big, broad Birmingham accent, who kind of looks goofy with a very large nose, he's a very tall, very thin man, you know. And so when Arthur says, "Yeah, he's a good bloke," you agree with him. You're like, "Yeah, he's a good bloke," you know. I mean, you got off with an ass whooping from his brother, and he warned him at the pub earlier. He said, "My brother's coming into town. By the way, anybody who ever crosses me, he kicks their ass." You know, he was warning him. You know, that was his way of saying, "Hey, keep your dick out of my wife, please." You know. So yeah, to that point.
But it also
And
makes him an effect. It also makes him an effective character. So he's not just a dope, as Arthur put it. He's somebody who gets things done. He managed to put Arthur in bed for a week and convince him to stay away from his wife. Uh, I want to mention, I referenced Yojimbo earlier, the connection of first person. This scene reminds me of the end of Sanjuro, which is a sequel to Yojimbo, because at the end of Sanjuro, you have, there's this big climax, this big confrontation between two characters that we're expecting almost throughout the film. And then the confrontation happens, and then Sanjuro ends the film by just saying to the people who survived, "Well, see you around." So almost verbatim the same last line. In both cases, we're waiting for this big confrontation. It happens, and then see you around. So I just thought an interesting coincidence.
And the other thing that I find really interesting with Brian Pringle's character is that this, you know, even though he's just like what happens in If, or um, all these again movies, like this hierarchy of power, and you know, maybe Arthur, he knows that he can never be this boss, but you know, and we can compare his character, like his behavior towards women, going back to Eric's question about like the female characters, that I think that their importance is that they showcase the male characters psyche, and the you know how, you know, their uh you know, their conflictions. For example, when they were trying to go out, like for to the pub, he, like this Brian Pringle's character, he wasn't even, he didn't want to take care of his own kid. But and then we see Arthur, you know, they got a nanny for that few hours. But then Arthur, you know, he might think that he hired those guys to beat him down, and you know, he taught him a lesson. But on the other hand, just because all Arthur's character throughout the film is kind of like a middle finger to the power and to the system and to people's like higher than him in this hierarchy of power, again, he can sit back and laugh, and he says, yeah, you know what, for the rest of your life you're gonna bring up my kid somehow. And I think that was really that kind of this very subtle comedic point to that.
Well, that is a good point, but of course he didn't hire him. That's his brother and his military buddy who'd come to visit him for 2 weeks.
Like for the guys who beat him up. Yeah,
Yeah,
so anyway, no, he taught him a lesson. No, but I meant like when they were going out with Brenda, when Arthur was going out with Brenda, they hired the nanny to take care of the kids, because
yeah,
he wasn't, you know, he was like reluctant to take care of his babies for 2 hours so that the wife can go out and have a simple drink, you know. That's like the he thought that he's the man of the house, and you know, so that shows, that tells a lot about the character.
So the more I read into this book, the more I read into the author's stance on when he wrote it, and his influence and stuff, the more I'm really drawn into the storyline. Which before I hadn't even. I don't know why I thought that this was like a English American UK type thing. When he wrote it, he's talking about all of his time in Russia, and it's really intense. And one of the things I just want to quote real quick, I was going to say a few minutes ago, was it says, hold on. Society is not a fragile mirror that can crack when the slightest pebble hits it. There are no dangerous ideas in the society which has the self-confidence of its secure foundations. Let me read that one more time. Sorry. Society is not a fragile mirror that can crack when the slightest pebble hits it. There are no dangerous ideas in a society which has the self-confidence of its secure foundations. Even if it's half true, the writer must always be on his guard. Who was it that said that English writers and journalists do not need to be censored, but do a very good job themselves? Thank you very much. If there is anything worse than censorship imposed by the state, it's the censorship where people take on voluntarily, in the belief that everything is perfect, and that if it is not, they don't want to be the one who rocks the boat. Not long ago, harsh rules of censorship were imposed on the productions of films. Judging by that sort of thing, we can see today such censorship was unnecessary. The film script, at first a Saturday night and a Sunday morning, made many journeys to and from the British Board of Film Censors before it was finally passed off as being made, though they only made it under an X certificate. In the novel, the main female character had an abortion. In the film, the attempt could be indicated but not shown as successful. This ruling had to be accepted, and some of the fight scenes toned down. Two amendments which distorted the tenor of the film. The contracts had been drawn up and signed, and the 90,000 pounds which the film cost had already been invested, so we had to accept the cuts. And it's just like, wow. So I wonder how that would have changed the tonality of the movie and how we feel towards the character Arthur had it show that she had the abortion and not them getting married, and living happily ever after, off screen, supposedly stage left.
Well, I just want to say regarding the pebble, the fact that he throws a pebble at the end, that comment gives whole new meaning to his throwing the pebble at the end of the houses.
And I think this is a case, and and this is something we talked about in the Buñuel rooms, where censorship actually gave this a much more transgressive ending. So instead of the ending being a woman, married woman, getting pregnant and having an abortion and having to deal with that, a child is brought into this world and is being raised by someone else, and which makes Arthur even look like more of a shit at the end, and that's even more transgressive than an abortion would have been, but to modern day ears. If you look at a later film, Alfie, which has where which was made in, I think it was 66 or 67 with Michael Caine, where the British censors had loosened up enough to allow an actual abortion in it. You in that film feel, and probably in the play that it's based on as well, kind of feel like, oh well, Alfie got away with that one, and that might have been how you just would have felt with this. Oh well, Arthur got away with that one. I hope he learned his lesson. Whereas this, I think, has a much more permanent and again, transgressive ending.
Well, so apparently this is all based on, the characters are all composites of his cousins, who, when they went off to war as strong young boys and came back, burned their uniforms pretty much in effigy, and started working the nightlife, robbing at night and coming in and sleeping during the day. And so at 13, he wrote a book all about his cousin's exploits. Unfortunately, he listed a little too much reality in the books. So his mom found it. And like a good mother, a supportive, loving mother, she went, smacked him upside the head and told him, "What were you thinking? You're going to get us all thrown in jail," and throws it in the fireplace. Loses the first copy of this book, right? Like, it's gone. And he says, well, it was for the best. This is good, honest censorship. Somebody needed to do that, because otherwise, yeah, I would have sent this off and we all would have gone to jail. But I find that hilarious that all of these are real exploits that really happened to his cousins, every one of them, which is like, wait, what? So although it doesn't say it's based on a true story,
Loneliness of a Long Distance Runner was also based on one of his relatives.
Which one?
Which was about Loneliness of a Long Distance Runner, which he wrote. And there's a great film of it. Tony Richardson directed it, which is also based on one of his relatives, and that's about the British reformatory school system.
Oh wow, I haven't even heard of that one. Let me write that down real quick. What was it again?
Well, it's a movie we'll be covering eventually.
I'll wait.
It's Tony Richardson, but we'll get to it. We're slowly working our way towards 1999 and Nil by Mouth. And just as I felt like before we saw Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, we had to see things like The Entertainer and Cass, and we definitely had to experience the sporting life. There are films that we have to see to put something like Nil by Mouth into context, and Saturday Night and Sunday Morning is which Tony Richardson was the guy who produced this film. Karel Reisz directed it, but Karel Reisz was the producer of This Sporting Life. So they're all rather interconnected, because of course, as we know, Tony Richardson was also the producer of Cass. So, so we'll be covering that, and also A Taste of Honey from this. But
oh, great! I look forward to A Taste of Honey. I just wanted to say to Hillary, just FYI, the censors let the script use the words bastards, bloody, and bleeding, but they did not allow sod, Christ, and bugger. So those
really,
yeah. So
wow.
Yeah, and they tried to fudge bugger and make it bogger, and they wouldn't approve that either.
Really? That is, because to me that's like the most, like, I mean, I picture like little old ladies in church going, "Oh, better off you." You know, I picture that being something that's like, golly gosh,
Oh,
geez.
bugger.
Not at all like it would be considered a bastard though. I mean, that's like way worse.
And you know that the movie was rated X
Yeah, that's what I
back
was saying a few
then.
minutes ago. Yeah, it had the X rating.
Although X
Yeah,
didn't mean
but
what it meant
something about the
over here.
book, but the book, the violence in the book is so out there.
But it's
It's
tangible.
very,
And the way
and
he
the
writes is
language
very
around,
like
yeah.
he writes much like Irving Walsh, and the fact that you can feel, taste, smell, and be in the scene. As graphic as some of them may be, or as deep as they may go, they become tangible works of art that you could be immersive into versus just reading about a scene. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said before you get to the room. That's what I
We
said
can't be
right
in
at the
rooms,
beginning.
and from
That's
now on, you've
exactly
got to bring me
true.
in the room with you because I'm missing all the good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. We used to stall for 15 minutes to let people show up, but we decided that that was making people come in late because, if they haven't missed anything, there's nothing to make them be here on time. Yeah, this is not a democracy. This is a dictatorship. I would like to say about Sillitoe, I have tried to read quite a bit of Sillitoe, and he is somebody who is famous for resisting editing. He thinks that once you put a thought on paper, if you go back and try and edit it or change it in any way, shape, or form, you've destroyed the thought. And
Do you not agree with that?
and I hate to say this, but um, because I do enjoy his shorts. I do enjoy some of his short stories. He needs an editor. He needs some editing.
I agree with most of what he
that
says
that
about censorship. I agree with it wholeheartedly. Um, I don't think that we should be writing just absolute smut and putting crap out there that that is volatile, and by offensive I mean something that's just vulgarity that was meant just to be offensive. I don't like that. Like the Tom Greens of the world. I don't like that. But I do agree that when I've gone back and read my original drafts of books that I've published and versus the final draft, the thoughts, the way I shaped the book in my head and the way I saw the characters never comes across in the end. It just doesn't, because it's been so watered down to meet the standards and the what sells, quote unquote. By the time it gets back to me, I'm just like, this isn't even I didn't even write this. Like, what is all this shit? I didn't write this. It feels like ChatGPT took my work and spits it back out at me. It's like that's there's no heart to it. So I like what he does.
Oh, I think it's great in theory. I'm talking about the actual experience of actually reading, yeah, which is why Yazzie is the one who decided to assign herself reading the book here, because I was like, the I really want to put myself through another syllabus, because his sentences go
You mean
on
like his formatting and
forever,
his like
and
punctuation
he'll
stuff? Or
he'll describe a goddamn vase of flowers for 3 pages, and you're just like, he's it's not difficult. He writes at a level that's very, very, like, and in an entertaining fashion. It's a lot like Kurt Vonnegut in that way, but it's just, uh, like I say, maybe uh, a little editing, you know.
yeah, no, I get it. I mean, you mentioned Kurt. That's my Slaughterhouse Five is my favorite book of all time. I actually have an autographed copy from the 50s. But him, Irvine Walsh, William S. Burroughs. Those are like my favorite authors. So this is like my vein. Like this is the kind of stuff I like to read. But then again, have you ever looked at a vase of flowers on weave?
or or
You
or
got to
or,
be able
or
to get that
Well, or
mod.
in Silito's case, on stout, on because
Right? So
that was his
when you look at
author
it
choice.
from those points of view, and you're like, you know what? That probably in that moment was the most fascinating piece of anything he'd ever seen in his entire life. And he wanted to express it in a way that he needed to shut the fuck up. But don't we all, when we're high or drunk, need to shut the fuck up sometimes?
And the other
But
thing,
I must confess that I really enjoyed this way more than A Casserole for a Knave.
well,
Oh, I liked Kess way more than I had the opposite. I loved Kess a
I
lot
think she
more.
meant the book,
With
right?
Kess, I had
Yassi, did you mean the book?
oh
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I meant the book.
oh
Yeah.
sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think this film is in the same category as I gave this 4 stars on Rotten Tomatoes, and that was upping it from 3 stars after this viewing. I don't think Whereas Kess is if there isn't it, if Kess isn't a 5 star movie, there's no such thing as a 5 star movie. I don't think this is a master, but this is definitely a far more influential film than Cass. It caught on with the culture in a way that Cass did, and
But from
so
the movie point of view,
there's something to be said about that.
you might think that A
That's somewhat
Clockwork
a matter of
Orange
timing.
had more cultural influence, and I think that also speaks to the censorship. Because if this book, I wish you all could read it, because if this book could made at the same time like The Clockwork Orange without all those imposing censorships, that would have the same cultural impact.
I feel like the whole vein of both of those, of both books were the spitting in the eye of the the man, so to speak, the I'm going to do what I want to do, the feeling that these kids were having coming back from the wars, coming out of World War II, going into Korea and Vietnam and some of that. It was that I am trapped in a world that has been set out for me, and I have not picked any of this for myself. I'm trapped, and both of those movies have that feeling of there is so much fun and so much I am king of the world. I can go rape her, I can go have sex with her, I can fuck my friend's wife, it doesn't matter. This is all me, I'm useful, woo. And then bam, sorry, here's a circumstance where now you have to you're no longer allowed to be that freedom, and you have to conform, and you have to live this lie like all the rest of us do. And I think that it was very capturing of the moment in many men's lives at that time that they were personally experiencing, dealing with the draft and going to war and all that whatnot, which might have been what made it work as much as it did at that time.
Precisely. Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
I did want to kind of start wrapping the room up because we're going to get to 2 hours. But I did want to answer one of Yassi's questions, but I kind of wanted to wait until the end, which was, why are these British kitchen sink dramas not as widely shown and talked about as other films from this era? And I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of productivity of the filmmakers. Tony Richardson ended up moving to Hollywood. Karel Reisz, who directed this, made a total of 9 films. I've said many times that Lindsay Anderson's only was able to make 4 films, and so they don't fit into an au revoir the way you don't have a large selection of films the way you do with Truffaut, with Godard, with Hervé, with Scorsese. The list goes on, and so you aren't going to be able to teach an entire course on the films of Karel Reisz, because you'd be talking about this, Morgan, A Suitable Case for Treatment, which I would love to do in this but room, but I can't find it available for streaming anywhere. For example, The French Lieutenant's Woman and The Gambler, that he made in Hollywood, would be those would be the only 4 films that you'd be able to cover. Same with Anderson, you'd be able to talk about this, or these films that he produced. Look Back in Anger, The Entertainer, Tom Jones, full stop. Or Anderson. I'm sorry, Tony Richardson. Everybody has 2 first names over in England. But my point to Yassi's question is because they're not as prolific of filmmakers, because the trend didn't last, and they weren't and they didn't move on to something else in the next trend that took hold. I think that has a lot to do with why this is kind of a forgotten era here in the United States. And over in England, of course, because then when the kitchen sink drama was no longer in vogue on screen, it was overtaken on their televisions, and there were just too many and people just became kind of tired of them. They became old hat, and people had, they talk now about a superhero fatigue. People in England came 1966, 1967, had kitchen sink drama fatigue, because of course
Well,
every
that's the
Thursday.
pattern of trends. That's how it works. Whatever is extremely trendy at one moment, within the next is going to be cringeworthy. And if you don't pivot and move with it, if you can't adapt to it and go that direction with that flow, you don't have to be exactly like go with that flow. You will be not only forgotten, but you'll be forgotten in a cringe fashion. But then it's secular because as soon as about 20 years hits, boom. To a generation or two later, now it's a revival, and everybody loves it. Everybody remembers it. It's nostalgia now, and it's been happening since Cleopatra donned that first toga, and everyone said, "Oh, I want that one." So it's the way it
Yeah,
always will be.
just look at Westerns. That's a perfect
Exactly.
example. Well, I wanted to say also, a lot of the fresh talents that came in that movement ended up moving to Hollywood and making American pictures. So there's that as well. Also,
Well, go ahead.
I think that a lot of these films were important for being at a certain time and having an influence, um, as opposed to they are, some of the greatest films ever made in their own right. I think the historical influence they had is a large part of their importance. And unless somebody's a film student, they don't need to go see a movie for its historical importance. So, and on the other, also, the accents can make a difference. Like Cass certainly was crippled by the severe accents. And I think it's only now with the pervasiveness of subtitles that Kes could make a comeback. So I think those are some of the factors.
Well, and we talked about this when we were talking about the entertainer. Is that the reason I'm not doing rooms on Room at the Top or Look Back in Anger is because the only thing that really I found to discuss in those was their historical importance, because they 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 seem dated. This is as good a way to end, before we do our closing remarks. I don't think this is a dated film. This film did not feel dated to me. But I think a lot of the reason why has more to do with Freddie Francis's photography and Karel Reiss's uh, uh, direction, and less to do with the subject matter, dialogue, or performances, because, taken in the abstract, those all do kind of feel of a time, the very late 50s or early 1960s to me. So I'm gonna go in PTR order and get your final thoughts on Saturday night and Sunday morning, and we're gonna start with New York Times best-selling author Hy Bender.
As always, I want to thank Eric for picking a film that's worthy of attention, and for doing this wonderful house and these wonderful weekly rooms. I also want to thank Sila, who has his own series going on, and Sila for doing this amazing Kurosawa series. The next one is going to be Rashomon. Celia, when we get to you, please remind us what the date of that is. And I, Hillary, always such a pleasure to have you here. Please don't be a stranger. And if you're interested in Dr. Zhivago next week, it would be fantastic to have you there. Yassi, good to have you back. And Sila, again, grateful for the parallel series you're doing with Kurosawa. I actually plugged Akiru in the room that happens before this one, in Dawn Field's room, because I'm just determined to tell as many people as possible that they need to see Akira. Just I'm so grateful. I can't. I keep saying it like a broken record, but I'm so grateful that you picked that movie because I wouldn't have seen it otherwise. And
That's in
it's
my top five, dude. I didn't know about this. You guys have got to ping me into that room, please.
so yeah. Anyway, that's it for me.
Yazzie, your final thoughts on Saturday night and Sunday morning.
The only thing I think is left is from the technical point of view and the use of sound, that this contrast between the sound of factory and going back to what Sila was saying about the fishing that was also in Kes, that we could see all those landscapes of this the escape from the urban life and the factory life, and this masculinity of sorts, and then they come to nature, and this need of these people to go back and find solace and the moment of this kind of meditative moments in nature. Also, we saw that in Boy when we were talking about when we were talking about Nagisa Oshima's movie. We see that, and it was so well and from technical point in this movie, in the sound of factory, and then that silence and peace when they were fishing, that symbolizes all this needs for this guy to break free from this life, and his needs like to to get free from all this limitations of life of sword, and also his needs to take control, that shooting scene, this when how long you can oppress these characters, these male figures, and like female characters. There is a point for that, for Doreen, for Arthur, for all of them, to break free from traditions, from things that they've been dictated to them. And I think that's the thing that I find very interesting in this free cinema movement.
Thank you, Yazzie. And yes, I wanna join Hi in welcoming you back. Boy, have we missed you. Sila, are you available to speak?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Well, I want to address the importance, in my view, from culture, the importance of localities. When we see fishing, fishing in that town cannot be compared to fishing in Massachusetts. It's a different thing because it's surrounded by different things. And I like, especially as a person who has lived in different places, I just love to be able to see what are these people about? What is their regular life, even if I don't understand it, but just to appreciate and observe in detail. And I think this film does very well showing the landscape, well, the architecture, if you can call that architecture, the skyline of that town, the like you mentioned before, the sound of the factory. There is so many things that when we say on the commercial side, well, the Americans are not interested in that, but I'm not saying they should be, but that's exactly what I appreciate to see, to dive a little bit as possible, as much as possible into what this town is about, especially when you share the matter that that a lot of the film has to do with his own life, the 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 locations and things like that. So that's what I would close with. Thank you, all of you, for the same reason. All these detail, all these perspectives that add to my perception of the film. And to answer High's question, the Rashomon film, I booked for the 26th, which is the first day after my long days working here every day. So I will have
Tuesday.
that is a Sunday. The 26th is a Sunday. All
The
right?
26th is a Tuesday. Are we talking
Wait,
March?
wait a second. Now that we're talking about dates, a few
I'm
days ago was
confused now.
Eric's birthday. So happy birthday, Eric.
Are you kidding? Happy birthday,
Yeah.
baby. Why don't you tell us?
Happy birthday.
Because I had Sila sing me happy birthday, and he has a beautiful singing voice, and that was all I
Don't
needed.
push it. Don't push
That
it.
was all I needed. Sila sang me happy birthday, and that was it. After that, everything else just would have been an anticlimax.
Well, you haven't heard Kathy sing happy birthday yet. She does it topless.
Yeah, Kathy.
I do it without the top on the wine, honestly.
Kathy, you have a great talent for showing up right when we're when we're
I
finishing
know.
up.
I'm gutted. You know what? This is normally later, or honestly, it is normally later, isn't it?
Yeah, you know no. You just have always found a
It's
way to.
usually earlier.
Yeah, you just always find a way to show up right when
I'm
when
just,
we're wrapping
you
up.
know what it is? It's because it's 11 o'clock and I've just finished my gig.
Oh, well,
It, it, it used
I hope
it
everyone
used to
comes
be at
screaming.
3.
let Hillary. Do you mind if we cut to Kathy and get her thoughts on the film so that we can just get to them, and then
Yes, but only if
then
Sila
we'll let you
promises to stick
let
around
we'll
until I speak.
but and we'll let you have the last word before I do our scheduling and promotions. Um, Go ahead, Kathy. Your
Okay,
thoughts on
right.
on Saturday Night
So
Sunday
it's
morning.
been, I'm not part of the film club, but I do check in every now and then. Can you understand me, by the way, before I continue?
Yes, you have very strong internet this time.
I do. Thank you. Hooray, Virgin Media. Anyway, so I've not watched the film in a long while, but what I do know about this film was it's it's a typical revolutionary film in terms of just bringing about the cultural changes and trying to make people realize things are changing in society, so people might have been shocked, but actually it was like quite popular with the younger, because it was like, this is more of what is happening in current times. Now, as I said, I haven't watched film in a long time, but what I do know is that if it wasn't for this film, then Ian Fleming wouldn't have sold the rights to James Bond to be produced as a movie series. So
I'm glad Harry Saltzman got a mention in this, because he's always the forgotten figure in the Canadian behind all of the British kitchen sink dramas. He's always the forgotten figure. Thank you for being here, Kathy, and of course we tease you because we love you. You know that.
listen, there's no teasing if no offense is taken. So for me, it's just it's, you know what it is. It's like that girl in the school playground. Just because you love me, and I take it as a compliment.
I'm gonna pull your
There you
pigtails
go.
anyway.
Oh,
Did you
Hillary, I'm
say
gonna pull
mating
yours. It's
season?
fine.
And that's what makes us friends.
Whee! But
Go
let's not
ahead,
give them a
Sila.
preview because you have to pay for that.
Did Kathy? Did you just say mating season?
Did I say what? Sorry.
Mating season.
No, I never.
Oh,
That
okay.
must have
That's
been
what
in
I
your head.
thought. Oh, ow. Oh, okay. All right. I guess so.
Our replay's on,
That
because
that tells you more about Sila than it does about Kathy.
I really hope replays are on, because I definitely did
And
not say
even
that.
less about mating season. Anyway, uh, no, I retract what I said. I was looking at my calendar the wrong way because of these days that I in
Were you
put
looking at
there
the
in the
Mayan
different.
calendar season? Is that what you mean?
No, at the Julian. Anyway, back to reality. You are
Back
all
to
right. I
life.
was
Thanks a lot.
wrong.
Now that song's gonna be in my head all week. Damn it.
I was wrong. It is on a Tuesday. It's at the next Tuesday, 26, at 5 p.m. Rashomon. So that's the only thing that I will share. Thank you very much to everyone, and those who were in the audience, everybody, and those who will listen to the recording. Thank you very much.
Don't
That's
you go
5
anywhere.
5 p.m. Eastern time.
Correct.
And I have on recording Sila telling us that we were right and he was wrong. I will
Before we
treasure
close
that.
up, because I gotta go. I gotta go because I gotta be somewhere in like 5 minutes, and I'm 10 minutes away from it. So I just want to close it real quick and say, Sila, if you don't already have a book out, talk with me. I want to publish your I want to work with you on your art. I think your photographs are fantastic. I love the color of them. I love your photography.
Thank you.
So
Well, I'm
if
working
you
on
don't
three.
already have a table book out, let's talk.
Thank you very much, because I'm working on 3 books right now, so I will talk.
Love
Oh,
it.
and Hillary, I've only been in university 6 weeks and I've already got a book that I want to present. But there's no illustrations. But if you want to help me out, I don't mind.
Yeah, dude, you know I've got you. You're my girl. We've been friends for like what, 3 years now since the beginning.
No, but I know. But by the way, this is just girl love. Right, Hillary is one of the most genuine people I've met on Clubhouse. So, and I would happily, I would right now. I'm not gay, but I would happily date her and just look at her. Honestly, she's lovely.
Oh my god, that is the nicest thing anyone I think has ever said. Like, dude, that is so sweet. Thank
And
you.
can the guys
Thank you
please
so much.
not replay this and sell it? It's definitely not porn.
I'll tell the world. But the world doesn't listen to me, so it won't matter. But I just want to wrap up with this movie real quick.
Y'all are being too nice to each other. God
It's
damn it!
on porn. It's on
This is
porn.
UK cinema. This is UK cinema history.
All being
Come for the
recorded.
movie, stay for the verbal abuse. You've got the you serious.
Just like
It's not
Thanksgiving.
abuse if you enjoy it.
So I wanted to wrap up real quick with saying, this movie or the novel and the movie both, they capture a moment in time, not just cinematically, but within us. We've all lived pieces of this movie.
Revolutionary.
I wouldn't go as far as to say revolutionary, but I believe that we've all lived little vignettes in this movie. And watching it, the reason it might be so hard for some of us to get through to watch it is because we hated those pieces of ourselves that we see in
Because
this
it's
movie.
so
They
realistic.
reflect back at us, and they reflect back at us with a reality and a realness that it cuts a little. You know, we remember doing and saying these horrible things at times, and everybody's different levels. You know, and we don't want to see that reflected back. I think that's why Americans will just, dream wash all of our films, because we want everything to be light and
Well,
airy and happy and everybody ends on a good note or everybody blows up and
well,
dies.
Hillary,
But in this film, it showed us a lot of those things we hate about ourselves that no one was willing to admit they really.
I don't know if you know this, but my mum, she lived in Bermuda for 6 years of her life, up until the age of 12, right? Because right, and so she experienced the American life. Because in Bermuda, when she was schooled in the American way. Every morning they had to sing the American national anthem. Now, my mum was born in 1947. This was like a long time ago. So when she grew up, these films, because she was in an Irish Catholic family, but like living in a Caribbean island run by Americans, her mind was just blown. Because when she come back to Liverpool, because her dad was so sick and then he died and they had to come back to the family, it was like shock value. She was almost like, not the same. It was Vivian Leigh and Gone with the Wind with all these dresses. But when she come back to the UK, it was like the UK didn't even know these dresses existed. Then she had this American accent, but then she'd seen all these films and she introduced her friends and she was taught as the rebel. And it was like, well, this is, and then she thought she was a rebel, but she wasn't. It was like, no, well, Anne, this is reality. And she was like, well, I thought this was just myth. And then she was like, no. So for over here, it's like a different culture. It's like all these films, like they were talking about one the other week where there was a butler, I can't remember which one, on an island where there was a plane crash and the butler just tried to
Admirable Crichton.
yeah. So he just tried to recreate, but that's what will happen in that society. They're so brainwashed, they don't know what else to do. So they just think, I'll just carry on as normal until someone tells me otherwise. And it's the same effect. So over here, they were revolutionaries, a bit like Woodstock. It was a bit like the Beatles. It was like a change of culture, change of reality. Like, it's in your face. This is happening, whether you like it or not. But over here, they did accept it more because the youth were accepting it more than the old school. So, like when my mum said when her mum saw the Beatles on TV, their mum didn't like them at first. Said, "Oh no, a man singing about holding her hand. No, not having that. Didn't like it." and it's so old school, but it's like, well, that's actually quite polite. But anyway, it was like a slight introduction. So it's really hard for me to explain. So these films over here, but I only know this from my mum's sense of view, were different because it was more like, this is reality, and it wasn't so taboo as it was in America, if you get what I'm saying. So I love listening to your channel on here because it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
And
Thank you,
now I
Kathy.
am
That means a
3
lot
minutes
to me.
late before I gotta go, so I gotta pass. I love you, Kathy. I love you. I kiss your face. Mwah, mwah, mwah. But really, I do have to bounce. I love you guys. I will see you next week.
Great to see you, Hillary.
Did you guys manage to see Whistle Down the Wind?
I did. I don't know about the rest of the room. We'll be doing it eventually.
Okay, can you give me out of 10 emotionally how you felt?
I think it's a 10 out of 10.
It is a 10 out of 10, isn't it? It's beautiful.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be doing the film in the room eventually. But unfortunately, I
No,
kind of scheduled 3 years out. Next week we're doing High's suggestion, Dr. Zhivago, the adaptation by David Lean and Robert
wow.
Bolt of the Boris Pasternak novel about the Russian Revolution and the Russian Civil War, which again shot by Freddie Francis, the same guy who shot this, who shot the Elephant Man that we'll be doing later, and had done The
I
Innocents.
love the
So
Elephant
this
Man.
is
Oh,
well. Hopefully you can show up a little earlier for that.
well,
Just
it's so
cancel
hard.
your gig.
Sorry.
Cancel your real life. Cancel your gig. If
No,
you have
no,
people
I can't.
talking to strangers on the internet is so much more important.
You're not
But anyway,
strangers to me. Strangers are just friends that we just haven't met yet. So
there you go,
that's how I
Kathy.
see it.
And then
No, but honestly, I love it. I love your room. It's beautiful. And I swear last time it was later, but never mind.
I think we ran a little longer. That room was all, and so yeah, you got here a little
So
earlier because the room ran
have you
like 3
got real
hours.
lives to get back to?
I don't, but the rest of them do.
Can't you host a green room?
We could do a green room. Yassi's always talking about doing a green room.
I think you should. Every chat show has a green room, and this is one thing that is missed on Clubhouse is a green room.
Well, we'll work on that. Maybe we'll start doing that. High has left the 11 o'clock a.m. our time on Sunday open. Maybe we can fill that time with like a follow up.
Don't worry about anyone else. Just host your own green room. Listen, I'll go because I'll be there.
Okay. Anyway, scheduling. Yes. So next week. Yeah. I'm. Yeah. That's going to be at High's suggestion. We're going to. Yeah. I'm going to kind of allow High to do most of the talking on that because that's been our tradition. That when someone does it, when someone suggests a film, if we do the film, the price is. The benefit to me is I get to take that one off and be part of the audience, and you get to run the fucking thing.
All right.
So you
Thanks
got to
for
do
the
it twice,
heads up.
Sila. That's the way it works. There's a cost benefit now. No, all joking aside, no, we'll have a great discussion. It's a great film. Highly
Eric,
recommend it.
can I ask you and the mods? Okay, so from doing this, how long have you been doing this room for?
3 years, but we've only got recordings going back to I think August.
Okay, so what is the best discovery that you have come across, like in terms of the suggestion of what to watch, or maybe something that you've missed? Like, what is the most memorable thing that has brought something to your passion?
Caravaggio, I think, was overall the best film that we've ever done.
I was going to say Caravaggio, yes.
Yassi, what would your vote be?
I think Yazzi's is mating season.
No, she's back channeling me on Twitter. That's why. Hi, would you have a vote on that?
Not put on the spot. Again, in terms of film discussions in general, the biggest discovery for me was Akira by Kurosawa. And yeah, I'd have to give it thought to go beyond that.
That's a good answer.
Okay, what's the worst suggestion?
Oppenheimer.
I'm not going to ask why.
Cause it's shit. Anyway, the week after that, we're going to be doing. When Hai suggested it, I wanted to pair that up with another because of the Robert Bolt David Lean connection. I wanted to pair it up with another author and director combo, and I decided Carol Reed and Graham Greene. So we're following it up with Our Man in Havana, because why would we want yet another room discussing the third man? What else is there to say about the third man? But on the other hand, Our Man in Havana might be a new experience for some people. So those two are going to be paired up in that way.
I just searched for Our Man in Havana this morning. It's available on YouTube. So I think that's, as far as I can tell, the best place to see it is on YouTube.
Excellent. We do like our free movies here, and if I remember correctly, the print on YouTube is very good. I believe it's a 720 p. So, yeah. So that'll be our next 2 weeks, and like I say, kind of like the way I scheduled this and Kez back to back. I scheduled those two back to back as well, both having to do with revolution. But you'll get it when you see the two films. But that's the schedule going forward. I would also like to point out that when next Wednesday, Sila and I will be discussing Oshima's The Man Who Left His Will on Film over in his Musicus, I can't pronounce it, room. So
Musicus organicus. It's so simple.
Musicus organicus. Okay, I finally got the other room
Yeah,
down, and
and
of course
that's
your
why
neck
I
of the woods.
changed it because you got it.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm going to deliberately not get this one because I don't want to encourage that bad behavior. Anyway, and I would highly recommend being there for that. When Sila and I get together, it is always a good time, even if we're talking about paint drying. So, other than that, if anybody doesn't have anything else, does any Sila, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say what I did not say before. I like this film a lot. I wouldn't give it a very high ranking, but I'm very glad that I saw it, and I think it's a very well done movie.
All right. Anybody have
Can I
anything else?
just
If
can I
not,
just
wish
say
you.
it has got a lot of the plot information that matches Dirty Dancing, except Dirty Dancing is like glamorized abortion. So,
Nobody puts baby in the corner. But
but exactly.
I
But
hadn't
can I?
thought
Do you
about that.
remember I said I was related to Elizabeth Sellers? Do you remember that?
I did remember that, but who could forget that?
No, but like again, I've still never watched any of her films. How bad is that?
You're forgiven. Anyway, if nobody has anything else, I'm going to release you out
I'll just,
all to
I
the
just want to
real
say,
world.
I just want to say to Kathy what a delight it was to have you here today, and look forward to you coming whenever you can, as your schedule permits. And speaking of such things, Leonard hasn't been here forever. Do you have any idea what's going on with that?
He's taking a hiatus from Clubhouse until Daniel comes back.
Oh, well, that's incredibly insulting to all of
No, there's an election going on in Scotland that he's gotten extremely involved in. If you follow him on Twitter, you can follow him doing that, and he's just extremely busy.
Did you say in Scotland?
Yes.
It's not the Daniel who is pro-royalist, is it?
No, this is Leonard. No, he will not. He won't hurt you.
Oh
But
no one's gonna hurt me.
no, Leonard is one of the nicest, most knowledgeable people in the world. When he comes back, you'll see. But no,
Oh, you'll have to
he's in.
share a social, because if it's Scotland, I spend a lot of time in Scotland and I do a lot of work with the Scottish government.
He's a student at the University of Edinburgh. So, anywhom,
Oh,
yeah, but he'll be back. But he has taken a hiatus from Clubhouse and decided to focus on politics for a little while. And you know what?
that. And
He's
the Daniel that Eric mentioned is not the Daniel in Scotland politics. It's someone else who's on Clubhouse and runs his own movie house.
Yeah, if you are involved in politics, Clubhouse is definitely not a good place to be, especially if you're involved in politics in the UK. It is not a good place. So if anyone is in any way, shape or form, just to let you all know, right? I know this is a friendly stuff, but in the UK we have something called GDPR, and so everything is recorded and stored, whether you like it or not. It is, but in the UK we have the right to claim it back, any conversation we've been in. So it is all there. So that's why if he is involved in politics, he's probably liked it.
Oh,
That's
that's
very
smart.
interesting. Thank you for
That is
sharing
smart.
that.
And you know what? I give him credit for that because a lot of people wouldn't be
Exactly. A lot of people are
smart enough.
stupid on here.
Yeah, well, Leonard is a smart cookie. I will give him that. He is much wiser than I was at 19. But then I thought beer was food when I was his age. So,
Leo the
um,
lion.
other than that, I bid you all peace. Enjoy Doctor Zhivago at your leisure. It is one of the longer films that we've done. It is still shorter than Oppenheimer, and unlike Oppenheimer, it's good.
You are so mean to this poor Oppenheimer.
Want to join the conversation? Every Thursday, we record on the Clubhouse app. Just follow the link in the episode description, and you can be a part of our panel.